Harold Bennett advanced with difficulty toward the boarding gate, his cane tapping softly on the polished airport floor. His worn military jacket hung loosely over his frail frame, the patches frayed by years of use and memory. Beneath his cap, wisps of gray hair framed a wrinkled face, and his eyes, though tired, still held a quiet pride. To him, flying to Seattle was no big deal. It was to attend a ceremony honoring his old military unit. Harold didn't care for fanfare, but he felt it was important to show up. After all, not many of his comrades were still alive to attend. At the boarding gate, a young agent with a name tag reading Samantha glanced at Harold as he handed her his boarding pass. Her smile faltered for a second before she forced it back. "Sir," she said with a polite but firm tone, "this ticket isn't valid for this flight." Harold frowned. "That can't be. I bought it a month ago. Seat 12A. Samantha's eyes showed a flicker of impatience. She scanned the pass again, then shook her head. "Sorry, but that seat has already been assigned to another passenger. You'll need to wait here while we sort this out." Harold sighed. He'd flown many times before and knew these things happened. "That's fine," he said, stepping aside as people streamed past him into the boarding tunnel. Behind Harold, a man in his 30s leaned against a nearby pillar, watching. Dressed in a plain hoodie and jeans, Andrew Taylor looked like any other passenger waiting for his flight. But Andrew wasn't, just another traveler. He was the owner of Taylor Aviation, the airline Harold was trying to board. Andrew often flew incognito, blending in with passengers to observe how his staff treated them. His sharp eyes narrowed as he listened to Samantha quietly speak to a colleague. He caught fragments. Overbooked. Probably cause a scene. Easier this way. Andrew's jaw clenched. He wasn't one to jump to conclusions, but something about the way they spoke rubbed him the wrong way. He turned his attention back to Harold, who stood patiently to the side, cane trembling under his grip. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. Other passengers boarded, some casting sympathetic glances at Harold, others barely noticing. Him. Samantha returned, her expression neutral. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett, but it seems there's no seat available for you on this flight." Harold blinked. "What do you mean?" "I paid for my ticket. I have somewhere to be." "I understand, sir, but the flight is overbooked, and we can't accommodate you." Andrew stepped closer, pretending to scroll through his phone while listening. Samantha's tone had shifted. No longer polite, it was dismissive, as if she wanted Harold to give up and leave. Harold straightened, his voice calm but firm. "I'm not asking for special treatment. I just want the seat I paid for." A smirk crept onto Samantha's lips. "Sir, let's not make this difficult. I'm sure we can rebook you for tomorrow." Andrew had had enough. He stepped forward, his voice calm but authoritative. "Excuse me," he said. "What seems to be the problem here?" Samantha looked startled, her professional facade slipping for a moment. "Oh, no problem. We're just assisting this passenger." Assisting him by denying him his seat? Andrew raised an eyebrow. Harold looked at Andrew, surprised by the stranger's intervention. "It's all right, son. I'll handle it." Andrew ignored him. "He has a valid ticket, doesn't he?" Samantha hesitated. "Yes, but then he should be allowed to board." Andrew's tone hardened. "The overbooking is the airline's fault, not his." Samantha blushed. "I'll see what I can do," she muttered, turning away. Andrew faced Harold with a small smile. "I'm Andrew. Mind if I stick around to make sure they don't give you the runaround?" Harold chuckled. "If you like. I appreciate it." Minutes passed as Andrew made small talk with Harold. He learned that Harold served in the Korean War and was traveling to reunite with the few remaining members of his unit for an award ceremony. Finally, Samantha returned, scowling. "We found a seat, sir, but it's in the last row by the bathroom." Harold's shoulders slumped slightly, but he nodded. "That'll do." Andrew wasn't satisfied. "That's unacceptable." He paid for a specific seat. Samantha's fake smile returned. "It's the best we can do." Andrew's gaze sharpened. He wanted to reveal his identity but held back. There was more to this. As Harold made his way onto the plane, Andrew followed. It wasn't until Harold stumbled slightly and dropped his small duffel bag that Andrew noticed it. A glint of metal spilled out. A polished but ancient metal. Andrew's breath caught. He picked up the metal and saw the inscription. He had seen that metal before, on his grandfather's mantle. Could this be the same Harold Bennett his grandfather had spoken of so fondly? Andrew followed Harold down the aisle. His grandfather, Richard Taylor, had often spoken of his time in Korea. One name came up more than others: Harold Bennett, a man of unshakable integrity, a soldier who saved lives. And now here he was, being treated like a nuisance. Harold took his seat in the cramped last row. The flight attendants began their safety checks. Andrew decided to wait. When the plane leveled out, he walked to the back, stretching near the restroom before leaning toward Harold. "Mind if I sit for a bit?" he asked, pointing to the empty seat. Harold opened his eyes. "Sure, as long as the smell back here doesn't bother you," he joked. Andrew chuckled. "I've smelled worse." After a pause, he added, "That's an impressive medal. Distinguished Service Cross, right?" Harold's eyes lit up in surprise. He nodded. "Not many recognize it these days." "My grandfather had one," Andrew said. "He used to tell me stories about the men he served with. Said they were the real heroes." Harold smiled gently. "Then your grandfather must have been one." Andrew paused. He talked a lot about someone named Harold Bennett. Said he wouldn't be alive if not for him. The old man's expression shifted. "Richard Taylor," he murmured. "I remember. Good soldier. Good man." Andrew's chest tightened. "That was my grandfather." Harold turned to face Andrew. "You're Richard's grandson." Andrew nodded. "He used to talk about how you saved his life. Said he owed you everything." Harold's lips pressed together. "Your grandfather was braver than he gave himself credit for. Held our unit together when everything went to hell." Andrew asked, "Why didn't he ever tell me what you did?" Harold chuckled. "Men like your grandfather didn't dwell on the past. Besides, what I did was just part of the job." Andrew shook his head. "Not everyone would have done it." Harold shrugged. "Maybe." Their conversation was interrupted by Samantha, approaching with a strained smile. "Sir, I need you to return to your seat," she told Andrew. He looked at her. "I'm fine here, thanks." Samantha's jaw tightened. "It's against policy to block the aisle." Harold cleared his throat. "It's all right, son. Don't cause trouble for me." Andrew bit back a retort and stood. "I'll be back," he whispered. Back in his seat, Andrew's mind raced. This man was the Harold Bennett his grandfather revered. He pulled out his phone and found an email about the company's new veteran initiative. The irony hit hard. A plan formed. As the plane descended, Andrew returned to Harold. "When we land, may I buy you coffee? There's something I want to share." Harold raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Sure, son. I suppose I have time." After landing, they found a quiet corner in the terminal. Andrew placed a steaming cup before Harold. "I meant what I said on the plane. I want to hear more of your story. My grandfather often spoke of you, but I never truly grasped what you did for him." Harold looked up. "Your grandfather was a good man." Andrew shook his head. "You saved his life, didn't you?" Harold sighed. "We saved each other. That's how war works." Andrew frowned. "But there was more, right? He always talked about one particular day." Harold's hand trembled. He took a long sip. "There was such a day. Worst day of my life." He paused, then continued. "Early 1951. We were deep in enemy territory, isolated. Freezing. Our unit was ordered to hold a critical position. Mission? Impossible." Andrew leaned in. "Richard and I were in a small scouting squad. We walked into an ambush. Half the men didn't make it. Richard got hit in the leg. We were trapped." Harold paused. "I had a choice. Leave him or risk my life. I didn't think. Just acted. Dragged him through enemy fire. Somehow, we made it back." Andrew's chest tightened. "That's how you got the Distinguished Service Cross?" Harold shook his head. "That came later. Saving Richard was just the start. The real fight came when the enemy launched a full assault. We were outnumbered 10-1. I took command when our lieutenant fell. We held that hill for hours until reinforcements came. That's what earned the medal. Not saving Richard. Holding the hill." Andrew's throat tightened. "You saved lives, including my grandfather's." Harold's gaze hardened. "I did what I had to, but I've carried that day with me ever since. The men we lost. Medals don't erase that." Andrew was silent. My grandfather understood that. He said, "The bravest men carry the heaviest burdens." Harold gave a faint smile. Richard always had a way with words. Andrew hesitated. "I have something to tell you. I wasn't just a passenger on that flight. I own Taylor Aviation." Harold's eyes widened. "I started the airline to honor my grandfather. He taught me integrity, and today I failed him. My staff failed you." Harold gestured. "Son, you don't need to apologize for them." Andrew leaned forward. "I do. The way you were treated was wrong. You deserve better, and I'll make sure this never happens again." Harold studied Andrew, then nodded. "Your grandfather would be proud." The conversation lightened as Harold shared more stories. Hours passed. When Harold checked the time, he frowned. "I've kept you too long." "You haven't. But there's one more thing I want to do." Andrew smiled. "Wait here." Minutes later, he returned with a representative from Taylor Aviation. She handed Harold an envelope. Andrew placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's a lifetime pass. Unlimited flights. Always first class. It's the least I can do." Harold's eyes widened. He seemed speechless, then laughed. "You don't have to do that, son." "I know, but I want to. It's a small way to repay what you did for my grandfather and this country." Harold looked at the envelope, then at Andrew. "Thank you." His voice choked. Andrew smiled. "Thank you, Harold, for everything." As they shook hands, Andrew felt a clarity he hadn't known in years. They left the cafe together. As they walked, Andrew noticed how people overlooked Harold, a man who had risked his life, treated as invisible. His jaw tightened. "Harold," Andrew said, "you probably don't want to dwell on the past, but have you ever shared your experiences publicly?" Harold chuckled. "Not much. Most don't want to hear old war stories." Andrew frowned. "I think you're wrong. Your story matters. People need to hear it. If they understood the sacrifices, they'd treat you with the respect you deserve." Harold shrugged. "Maybe. But respect isn't demanded. It's earned." Andrew stopped. You've earned it 100 times over. This isn't just about you. It's about every veteran. A reminder of what we owe. Harold tilted his head. You mean this? Andrew nodded. Absolutely. And I'll make sure this airline becomes a leader in honoring veterans. You inspired me. That night, Andrew drafted a proposal. The Honor Flight Initiative. Small changes. Priority boarding, complimentary upgrades, personalized recognition. But he wanted more. Partnerships with veteran organizations, discounted flights for military families, events, and, most importantly, sharing stories like Harold's. He believed it would inspire a culture of respect. A week later, Andrew invited Harold to the airport for a special meeting. Harold looked skeptical. What's all this fuss? He asked, eyeing the group in the conference room. Andrew smiled. Harold, this is my leadership team. I wanted them to meet you, to hear your story. Harold shifted uncomfortably. I'm not sure I'm the right person. Andrew placed a hand on his shoulder. You are. Trust me. Harold hesitated, then nodded. He sat down and began to speak. His voice was firm, the words simple but powerful. He spoke of brotherhood, sacrifice, lost men, pride in serving, and the guilt of those who didn't return. When he finished, there wasn't a dry eye. The executives were moved. Later, Andrew pulled Harold aside. Today, you made a big impact. I think you're starting to see how much your story matters. Harold smiled faintly. Maybe you're right. Felt good to talk. Like I was doing something for those who didn't make it. You were. And this is just the beginning. Andrew handed Harold a folder outlining the Honor Flight Initiative. Harold's eyes widened. You're really doing all this? Andrew nodded. Because of you. I want no veteran to feel the way you did. This is my way of honoring you. Harold's hand trembled. Thank you, Andrew. This means more than I can say. Andrew smiled. Just know your story made a difference. A week later, the airline held an event to launch the Honor Flight Initiative. Samantha received an invitation, assuming it was training. She walked in and saw Harold Bennett. The memory of their interaction hit her. Guilt settled in. She took a seat in the back. Up front stood Andrew. She didn't recognize him beyond being another passenger. Andrew welcomed everyone. We're here to honor someone whose story inspired real change. He introduced Harold. This is Mr. Harold Bennett, a decorated war veteran. Harold stood and nodded. Samantha's cheeks burned. As Harold spoke briefly, Samantha's stomach churned. She wanted to vanish. When Harold finished, Andrew returned. Mr. Bennett's story highlights sacrifice, but also how easy it is to overlook those who gave so much. His eyes met Samantha's. Sometimes our mistakes come from not knowing, assumptions, or forgetting the responsibility to treat every passenger with dignity. Samantha's breath caught. He was talking about her. Andrew continued, Last week, one of our staff members failed. They dismissed Mr. Bennett. That moment was a failure of our values. Samantha's heart pounded. Andrew walked toward her. Samantha, do you remember Mr. Bennett? Her face paled. Yes, she whispered. Andrew nodded. And you remember me? Samantha blinked. You were on that flight, weren't you? I was, but not just another passenger. I'm Andrew Taylor. I own this airline. Complete silence. Samantha's mouth opened. Realization struck. Andrew continued. You didn't know who I was. But more importantly, you didn't know who Mr. Bennett was. And that's the problem. You made assumptions and treated him as if he didn't matter. Samantha's voice shook. Mr. Taylor, I wanted— Andrew raised a hand. Intent doesn't matter. Actions do. It was disrespectful. A missed opportunity. Samantha's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Exactly. That's why we're here. Not to shame, but to ensure it never happens again. It's about every veteran, every passenger. He turned to Harold. Mr. Bennett, would you like to say something? Harold looked at Samantha. We all make mistakes, young lady. What matters is what you do next. I don't need an apology. I need to know what you've learned. Samantha nodded, tears falling. I have. I promise. I'll do better. Andrew faced the room. Going forward, our staff will be trained. This is a commitment to our values. As the event ended, Samantha approached Harold. Mr. Bennett, I can't undo what I did, but your story changed me. Thank you. Harold smiled warmly. It's never too late to learn. I think you'll do just fine. 2 months later, the Honor Flight Initiative was in full swing. Veterans received priority boarding, upgrades, recognition. The program gained media attention, but Andrew knew the best was yet to come. Today, Taylor Aviation would unveil a plane dedicated to Harold Bennett. Andrew kept the details secret. Harold arrived at the hangar. Andrew greeted him. Good to see you, Harold. Likewise, son. But you didn't say what all this was about. Andrew laughed. You'll see. The hangar was packed. Samantha stood at the front, transformed, now an advocate for the initiative. Andrew took the stage before a large, covered plane. Good afternoon.